There are forces in this world that delight in deception, whispering lies into the ears of the proud. They fan the flames of arrogance, convincing a man that he is a god unto himself, that his will is law, and that others exist only to serve him. This, my friends, is the essence of narcissism. Not mere vanity or self-importance, but a soul captured by the illusion of its own supremacy. Make no mistake, such an individual is not merely suffering from psychological affliction. He is under siege. There are dark intelligences that revel in disorder, spirits that corrupt the human heart by distorting its love inward. They do not arrive with horns or thunder, but with soft whispers of entitlement, urging, "You deserve worship." They plant seeds of manipulation, envy, and cruelty, feeding a hunger that can never be satisfied. And what is the end of such a path? It is a prison without walls, where the narcissist remains bound by his own delusions. He believes himself victorious, yet he is utterly alone, a king in a crumbling kingdom of one. His heart, designed for love, is instead filled with insatiable need. The spirits that once flattered now mock him, for they have led him to the abyss, and he has followed willingly. But there is hope. Light pierces darkness, and truth breaks chains. The first step to freedom is to recognize the lie, to see that the self is not meant to be a god, but a servant of something greater. Humility is the antidote, for no spirit of pride can stand before the one who bows before truth. Those who seek to be healed must face the mirror and see what lurks behind their own eyes. For in acknowledging our weakness, we invite the strength that drives out all deception. And so I urge you, stand guard over your soul. Resist the voices that flatter, the spirits that seduce with promises of power. The world has too many rulers who cannot rule themselves. Instead, seek wisdom, seek humility, and in doing so find the freedom that no shadow can steal. Narcissism is often misunderstood as excessive self-love, but, in truth, it is a far more insidious condition, one that mirrors the oldest temptation known to humanity, the desire to be like God. It is not love that drives the narcissist, but an unquenchable hunger for self-exaltation. It is the belief that one is above reproach, beyond correction, and deserving of constant admiration. This mindset does not arise from a place of strength, but from a deep spiritual corruption, one that dark forces are all too eager to cultivate. From the very beginning, the enemy of the soul has sought to twist truth into deception. In the garden, the first temptation was not the mere offer of forbidden fruit, but the whispered suggestion that man could become like the Almighty. That same whisper echoes through the mind of the narcissist. The spirit of pride, the father of all rebellion, convinces him that humility is weakness, that to admit fault is to invite ruin, and that his worth is measured not by love, but by the power he holds over others. This is a dangerous illusion, for the moment a soul embraces such a lie, it begins its descent into self-worship. The narcissist does not see himself as he truly is, but only as he wishes to be perceived. His identity is built upon illusion, a carefully crafted mask that must be upheld at all costs. And because this mask is fragile, he becomes a prisoner of his own need for validation. Every word of criticism feels like an attack, every act of defiance a betrayal. He does not love others, he uses them as mirrors to reflect his own importance. If they refuse to provide the reflection he demands, he discards them without hesitation. But what is it that fuels this desperate need for control, for admiration, for power? It is the influence of forces unseen, spirits that take delight in leading a soul further and further from truth. These forces do not merely encourage arrogance, they cultivate paranoia, resentment, and an insatiable thirst for dominance. They whisper that the world is full of enemies, that submission is the path of fools, and that love is a tool to manipulate rather than a virtue to embrace. The narcissist, blind to the nature of these voices, obeys them willingly, believing their counsel to be his own wisdom. There is a peculiar contradiction in the heart of a narcissist. He is at once supremely confident and deeply insecure. He boasts of his greatness, yet lives in constant fear that others will see through his facade. He demands worship, yet is tormented by the knowledge that he can never truly force love. He isolates himself in his own superiority, yet resents the loneliness that follows. This is the cruel trick of the spirits that guide him. They promise power but deliver bondage. They promise admiration but lead him into a prison of his own making. To understand the depth of this condition, one must recognize that narcissism is not simply a personality flaw. It is a spiritual sickness. It is the result of a heart given over to pride, a soul that has chosen itself as its own master. And what master is more ruthless than the self, when it has been deceived into believing that it deserves worship? This is why the cure for narcissism is not flattery, nor indulgence, nor even mere self-awareness. It is humility. Only in surrendering the need for control, in recognizing one's own frailty, can a soul begin to heal. But humility is a foreign language to the narcissist, one that the spirits influencing him will do all they can to prevent him from learning. They will tell him that to bow is to be broken, that to serve is to be weak, and that to admit fault is to invite destruction. But these are lies, woven by those who themselves fell from grace for refusing to kneel. The battle against narcissism is not merely a struggle of mind and will, it is a war of the spirit. The forces that drive a man to see himself as a god will not easily release their grip. Yet the truth remains. No throne built upon illusion can stand forever. And when the narcissist world begins to crumble, when the mirrors shatter and the voices that once praised now torment, he will be left with a choice. Will he cling to the lie, or will he finally turn toward the light? The war of the soul is not fought with swords or shields, nor is it waged in the realm of flesh and blood. It is an invisible battle, yet its consequences shape the very fabric of a person's life. Narcissism, at its core, is not merely a matter of temperament or upbringing. It is a spiritual condition, one that is both influenced and sustained by forces unseen. These forces are not content with mere arrogance. They seek to distort the very nature of truth, trapping the narcissist in a cycle of deception, manipulation, and self-destruction. There are spirits in this world that feed on pride, that whisper lies so enticing they appear as wisdom. They twist reality, convincing a person that love is weakness, that power is the only currency that matters, and that to yield is to perish. The narcissist, seduced by these voices, builds his life upon the pursuit of dominance, believing that control over others is the same as fulfillment. But this is the first and most dangerous deception, for no amount of control can satisfy the restless hunger within him. It is a hunger that deepens with every victory, a thirst that no admiration can quench. The spirits that operate behind narcissism are ancient and cunning. They do not force themselves upon a person, they merely offer thoughts, suggestions, and justifications that gradually lead the soul further from the light. The narcissist believes he is acting of his own will, making choices based on logic and self-interest, yet in reality, he is being led, subtly, skillfully, into a state of spiritual blindness. His pride convinces him that he is free, yet he is bound more tightly than he realizes. One of the greatest weapons of these spirits is deception. They do not simply distort the narcissist's view of himself, they also warp his perception of others. He begins to see people not as fellow beings with thoughts, emotions, and intrinsic value, but as tools, stepping stones, or threats. To those who admire him, he offers favor. To those who question him, he offers scorn. And to those who resist him, he offers war. This inability to truly connect, to see others as they are rather than as extensions of his own need, is one of the most tragic aspects of his condition. But what makes this spiritual war so dangerous is that the narcissist does not recognize the enemy he is fighting. He believes his struggles are external, caused by those who fail to appreciate him, those who challenge him, those who deny him the validation he craves. He does not see that the true battle is within, that the real conflict is between the voice of truth calling him to humility and the voices of deception urging him to remain enthroned in his own mind. Every time he chooses pride over self-awareness, manipulation over honesty, control over love, he strengthens the hold of these unseen forces upon him. For all his outward confidence, the narcissist is not at peace. The spirits that drive him forward also torment him in secret. They sow paranoia, making him believe that others are plotting against him. They fuel his need for constant admiration, while ensuring that no amount of praise is ever enough. They lead him into isolation, convincing him that he is above others, while ensuring that he remains utterly alone. This is the true nature of the war. One that does not merely seek to elevate the narcissist, but to destroy him. But there is a way out. Though the spirits that feed on pride are powerful, they are not invincible. They thrive in darkness, but wither in the presence of truth. The moment a person begins to question, to seek, to acknowledge that he is not the master of his own existence, the chains begin to loosen. The first step toward freedom is awareness, the realization that the battle is not against people, but against the forces that have shaped his thinking for so long. To win this war, he must be willing to see, to listen, and, ultimately, to surrender his false throne. The choice remains his. He can continue down the path of deception, allowing these spirits to use him for their own ends, or he can turn toward the light and face the painful but necessary process of healing. The war is not unwinnable, but victory requires a kind of courage the narcissist has long avoided, the courage to let go of himself. The road to freedom from narcissism is neither easy nor instantaneous. It is a process that demands deep self-examination, the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and above all, humility. The grip of narcissism is not merely psychological, it is spiritual, reinforced by forces that thrive in darkness and resist exposure to the light. These forces do not release their hold willingly, for their power lies in the narcissist's blindness to his own condition. However, no prison built on deception can withstand the truth. The path to liberation, though difficult, is one that can be walked by anyone willing to step beyond the lies that have long governed their heart. The first and most crucial step is recognition. A person cannot heal from what they refuse to acknowledge. The narcissist must come to terms with the reality that his way of thinking, his approach to relationships, and his relentless pursuit of control are not marks of strength, but symptoms of bondage. This realization is often the most painful moment in his journey, for it shatters the illusion of superiority he has carefully maintained. The spirits that once whispered flattery now whisper fear, warning that to admit fault is to be powerless, to seek change is to invite suffering. Yet this is another deception, designed to keep him trapped in his own self-made prison. The truth, though uncomfortable, is the only path to true strength. Once recognition begins, the next step is self-examination. This is where many falter, for it requires an honest confrontation with the motivations that have shaped their actions. It is not enough to see that one has acted selfishly or destructively. One must ask why. What has driven the constant need for admiration? Why has there been such an aversion to vulnerability? Why has control over others felt so essential? The answers to these questions are often buried beneath layers of pride and denial, guarded by the very spirits that have kept the narcissist in darkness. To uncover them is to bring light into hidden places, and though this light may be painful at first, it is necessary for healing. Humility is the next and most vital step, for without it, transformation is impossible. The narcissist has lived under the belief that to yield is to be weak, that to admit fault is to invite shame. This is a lie that must be uprooted. True humility is not humiliation. It is the recognition of reality. It is the understanding that no person is above error, that no life is meant to be lived in isolation, and that true strength comes not from dominance, but from the ability to love and be loved without condition. The spirits that once guided the narcissist will fight this step with every deception at their disposal. They will whisper that humility will lead to rejection, that vulnerability will be exploited, that surrender means defeat. But the opposite is true. Humility is the key that unlocks the door to freedom. Beyond humility, there is one more essential step: rebuilding. Narcissism does not simply disappear overnight. It leaves behind habits, wounds, and broken relationships that must be mended. The narcissist must learn to relate to others in a new way, not as tools or threats, but as fellow souls with their own value and dignity. This requires patience, both with oneself and with those who have been hurt along the way. Trust, once broken, takes time to restore, and genuine change is proven not by words, but by consistent actions. The path forward is not about perfection, but about persistence, about choosing truth over deception, love over control, and growth over stagnation. The spirits that once ruled the narcissist mind do not give up easily. They will attempt to return, to whisper old lies in familiar ways, to rekindle the hunger for power and validation. But now there is a difference. The narcissist is no longer blind. He knows the nature of the battle, and he understands the cost of returning to his old ways. Armed with humility, self-awareness, and a commitment to truth, he can resist, not through force of will alone, but through the strength that comes from embracing the very thing he once rejected, the power of surrender. In the end, freedom is not about becoming something greater. It is about becoming whole. It is about shedding the illusions that have enslaved the soul and stepping into the reality of what it means to live with genuine purpose and connection. The narcissist who chooses this path does not lose himself. He finds himself, perhaps for the first time, and in that discovery he finds something even greater: the ability to truly love and be loved, no longer as a ruler seeking subjects, but as a human being, finally at peace,